Wheezing and farting nervously, Gaspode moved at a shambling run through the shades and saw, with a heart that sank even further, a knot of dogs ahead of him. He pushed and squirmed through the tangle of legs. Angua was at bay in a ring of teeth. The barking stopped. A couple of large dogs moved aside, and Big Fido stepped delicately forward.
"So," he said, "what we have here is not a dog at all. A spy, perhaps? There's always an enemy, everywhere. They look like dogs, but inside, they're not dogs. What were you doing?"
Angua growled.
"Oh Lord," thought Gaspode. "She could probably take down a few of them, but these are street dogs."
He wriggled under a couple of bodies and emerged in the circle. Big Fido turned his red-eyed gaze on him.
"And Gaspode, too," said the poodle. "I might have known."
"You leave her alone," said Gaspode.
"Oh? You'll fight us for her, will you?" said Big Fido.
"I got the power," said Gaspode. "You know that. I'll do it. I'll use it."
"There's no time for this," snarled Angua.
"You won't do it," said Big Fido.
"I'll do it."
"Every dog's paw will be turned against you."
"I got the power to me. You back off, all of you."
"What power?" said Butch. He was drooling.
"Big Fido knows," said Gaspode. "He studied. Now, me and her are going to walk out of here, right? Nice and slow."
The dogs looked at Big Fido. "Get them," he said. Angua bared her teeth. The dogs hesitated.
"A wolf's got a jaw 4 times stronger than any dog," said Gaspode, "and that's just an ordinary wolf."
"What are you all?" snapped Big Fido. "You're the pack! No mercy! Get them!" "But a pack doesn't act like that," Angua had said. "A pack is an association of free individuals. A pack doesn't leap because it's told. A pack leaps because every individual all at once decides to leap." A couple of the bigger dogs crouched. Angua moved her head from side to side, waiting for the first assault. A dog scraped the ground with its paw. Gaspode took a deep breath and adjusted his jaw. Dogs leapt. "Sit!" said Gaspode, impassible human. The command bounced back and forth around the alley, and 50% of the animals obeyed. In most cases, it was the hind 50%. Dogs in mid-spring found their treacherous legs coiling under them. "Bad dog!" And this was followed by an overpowering sense of racial shame that made them cringe automatically. A bad move in midair. Gaspode glanced up at Angua as bewildered dogs reined around them.
"I said I got the power, didn't I?" he said. "Now run!"
Dogs are not like cats, who amusingly tolerate humans only until someone comes up with a tin opener that can be operated with a paw. Men made dogs. They took wolves and gave them human things, unnecessary intelligence, names, a desire to belong, and a twitching inferiority complex. All dogs dream wolf dreams, and know they're dreaming of biting their maker. Every dog knows, deep in his heart, that he is a bad dog. But Big Fido's furious yapping broke the spell. "Get them!" Angua galloped over the cobbles. There was a cart at the other end of the alley, and beyond the cart, a wall.
"Not that way!"
whined Gaspode. Dogs were piling along behind them. Angua leapt on the cart.
"I can't get up there," said Gaspode. "Not with my leg."
She jumped down, picked him up by the scruff of his neck, and leapt back. There was a shed roof behind the cart, a ledge above that, and a few tiles slid under her paws and tumbled into the alley. A house.
"I feel sick."
"Fido!"
Angua ran along the ridge of the roof and jumped the alley on the other side, landing heavily in some ancient thatch.
"Ah!
"Fido!"
But the dogs were following them. It wasn't as though the alleys of the shades were very wide. Another narrow alley passed below. Gaspode swung perilously from the werewolf's jaws.
"They're still behind us!"
Gaspode shut his eyes as Angua bunched her muscles.
"Oh no, not Treacle Mine Road!"
There was a burst of acceleration, followed by a moment of calmness. Gaspode shut his eyes. Angua landed. Her paws scrabbled on the wet roof for a moment. Slates cascaded off into the street, and then she was bounding up to the ridge.
"You can put me down right now," said Gaspode. "Right now this minute. Here they come."
The leading dogs arrived on the opposite roof, saw the gap, and tried to turn. Claws slid on the tiles. Angua turned, fighting for breath. She tried to avoid breathing during that first mad dash. She'd have breathed Gaspode. They heard Big Fido's irate yapping. "Cowards! That's not 20 feet across! That's nothing to a wolf!" The dogs measured the distance doubtfully. Sometimes a dog has to get right down and ask himself, what species am I? "It's easy! I'll show you! Look!" Big Fido ran back a little way, paused, turned, ran, and leapt. There was hardly a curve to the trajectory. The little poodle accelerated out into space, powered less by muscles than by whatever it was that burned in his soul. His forepaws touched the slates, clawed for a moment on the slick surface, and found no hold. In silence, he skidded backwards down the roof, over the edge, and hung. He turned his eyes upwards to the dog that was gripping him. "Gaspode, is that you?" "Yes," said Gaspode, his mouth full. There was hardly any weight to the poodle, but then there was hardly any weight to Gaspode. He darted forward and braced his legs to take the strain, but there was nothing much to brace them against. He slid down inexorably until his front legs were in the gutter, which began to creak. Gaspode had an amazingly clear view of the street 3 stories down. "Oh, how?" said Gaspode. Jaws gripped his tail. "Let him go," said Angua indistinctly. Gaspode tried to shake his head. "Stop struggling," he said out of the corner of his mouth. "Race dog say today. Valiant hound in wolf-dog rescue. No!" The gutter creaked again. It's going to go, he thought. Story of my life. Big Fido struggled around. "What are you holding me up by?" "Your collar," said Gaspode through his teeth. "What? To hell with that!" The poodle tried to twist, flailing viciously at the air. "Try it, you deaf bugger! Your hair's all off!" Gaspode growled. On the opposite roof, the dog pack watched in horror. The gutter creaked again. Angua's claws scored white lines on the slates. Big Fido wrenched and spun, fighting the grip of the collar, which finally snapped. The dog turned in the air, hanging for a moment before gravity took hold. "Free!" And then he fell. Gaspode shot backwards as Angua's paws slipped from under her and landed further up the roof, legs spinning. Both of them made it to the crest and hung there, panting. Then Angua bounded away, clearing the next alley before Gaspode had stopped seeing a red mist in front of his eyes. He spat out Big Fido's collar, which slid down the roof and vanished over the edge. "Oh, thank you!" he shouted. "Thank you very much. Yes, leave me here. That's right. Me with only 3 good legs. Don't you worry about me. If I'm lucky, I'll fall off before I starve. Oh yes, story of my life. You and me, kid. Together. We could have made it." He turned and looked at the dogs lining the roofs on the other side of the street. "You lot, go home. Bad dog," he barked. He slithered down the other side of the roof. There was an alley there, but it was a sheer drop. He crept along the roof to the adjoining building, but there was no way down. There was a balcony a story below, though. "Lateral thinking," he muttered. "That's the stuff. Now, Wolf, your basic wolf, he'd jump, and if he couldn't jump, he'd be stuck. Whereas me, on account of superior intelligence, can assess the whole wasp name and arrive at a solution through application of mental processes." He nudged the gargoyle, squatting on the angle of the gutter. "If you don't help me down to that balcony, I'll whittle in your ear." Somewhere else. "Big Fido?" "Yes?" "Heal." There were, eventually, 2 theories about the end of Big Fido. The one put forward by the dog Gaspode, based on observational evidence, was that his remains were picked up by File Olron and sold within 5 minutes to a furrier, and that Big Fido eventually saw the light of day again as a set of earmuffs and a pair of fleecy gloves. The one believed by every other dog, based on what might tentatively be called the truth of the heart, was that he survived his fall, fled the city, and eventually led a huge pack of mountain wolves who nightly struck terror into isolated farmsteads. It made digging in the middens and hanging around back doors for scraps seem, well, more bearable. They were, after all, only doing it until Big Fido came back. His collar was kept in a secret place and visited regularly by dogs until they forgot about it.